The story starts inside a chamber of the royal palace where a woman named Origin reads a bedtime tale to her daughter Ellen. The story tells of an ancient kingdom known as Tenbahl, where the people once lived in peace. One day, however, the land was overrun by monsters, prompting the king to summon their most powerful guardian spirit to defend them. Though the spirit aided their champion in battle, they couldn't stop the threat entirely. In desperation, the warrior begged the spirit to unleash her true strength. She obeyed, wiping out the beasts in one massive strike, but the force of her power left the hero gravely wounded. Refusing to let him die, the spirit carried him into her own realm, vowing to bring him back someday. Yet no matter how long the people waited, the brave man never returned. Years later, Ellen listens quietly while sitting in her father's arms as another mother finishes telling that same tale to her own kid. When the curious kid asks his mother what became of the hero, Ellen whispers that he's already back. Her father, Rovel Vankreift, quickly hushes her. And as he places an order for kebabs, Ellen asks when he plans to come home again, but Rovel tells her it's complicated. Once he collects the food and turns to go, a man in the crowd recognizes him and calls out his name. The buzz spreads quickly and whispers ripple through the street. Now wanting to draw more attention, Rovel makes a run for it, but the two men begin chasing after him. He leaps over a passing cart and bolts into a dim alley, only to find himself cornered in a dead end. The pursuers finally catch up, but just as they reach him, Rovel vanishes into thin air, leaving them shocked. In the next moment, beneath a stone bridge, Rovel reappears with Ellen, who quietly asks why he keeps hiding from people. Rovel breaks down in tears, admitting that ever since he vanished, everyone turned him into some kind of legendary figure, and just doesn't know how to face that. Watching her dad sob like a child, Ellen remembers the tale most people believe, that he fell into a deep sleep after being taken away by the spirit, but the truth is something else. Origin, her mother, had helped him fully recover, and during that time, the two had fallen deeply in love. And after marrying Origin, Rovel ended up becoming part spirit himself, but his new powers were far from stable, so he spent several years learning to control his abilities before re-entering the human world alongside his daughter Ellen. Meanwhile, Ellen reveals that while she is technically Rovel's child, her soul once belonged to a Japanese scientist who reincarnated into Ellen's body. Back in her old life, she constantly experimented with chemical elements, always trying to invent something new, until she suddenly found herself transported into this world. Now she's training with her father to develop her magical skills. As she watches him, Rovel grumbles that everyone will overreact to his teleportation spell. Ellen then tells him to just go greet them and clear up their doubts, but Rovel admits he's too nervous to show his face. Out of nowhere, Rovel's former guardian, a man named Alberto, tracks them down beneath the bridge. Rovel immediately tries to flee, but Ellen asks him to stop. She then asks who the man is while Alberto stands there in disbelief as Rovel starts gushing about how adorable his daughter is. Caught off guard, Alberto awkwardly agrees she's cute before steering the conversation back to the matter at hand. He informs Rovel that the entire Vankreift household, his noble bloodline, has been eagerly waiting for his return. Rovel blinks in confusion, unfamiliar with the idea of being part of nobility. So Alberto explains that after Rovel wiped out the monsters, the kingdom honored his family with a duke title. Alberto then adds that Rovel's younger brother Sovel is currently the head of the house, so Rovel says that the family is fine without him now. But Alberto presses further, saying that Sovel's wife Igel has been stirring up trouble. The moment Rovel hears her name, he freezes, and Alberto explains that the royal family arranged Sovel's marriage to Igel, leaving him no choice. Rovel, however, refuses outright to see her again, forcing Alberto to back off for now. Ellen then turns to her father and reminds him that regardless of the situation, everyone back home has been worried about him. With mock disappointment, she says it feels like he's ignoring the people who care for him. Pretending to pout, she claims she hates him, which instantly makes Rovel panic and beg for forgiveness. Right in front of Alberto, he desperately promises Ellen that he'll return home, just please don't hate him. With that, the tension eases and the three of them board a carriage to head back. Ellen then asks about Igel, and he explains that she is the second princess of Tenbahl and was once Rovel's fiancée. According to him, she had a nasty attitude and acted as if marrying Rovel was some grand favor. And when Rovel assumed he would die fighting the beast, he used this opportunity to break off the engagement. But after Sovel received the title of Duke, Igel became drawn to his newfound status and arranged for a royal order to marry him instead. Still bitter over Rovel's disappearance, Alberto demands to know what exactly he was doing all that time in the spirit realm. Rovel quickly realizes Alberto's true intention, that he's hoping Rovel will return home and kick Igel out. Alberto doesn't deny it and explains that Igel's reckless spending has drained the family's fortune. Before returning to the estate, however, Rovel decides to make a quick stop at a church. Inside, the priest is shocked to see him again after so long. Rovel asks if he can conduct a marriage ceremony, The priest agrees but asks if the wedding should be held in the kingdom's capital. Rovel says there's no time for that and he wants it done as soon as possible, so the priest nods and begins making the arrangements. Ellen then looks over at her father curiously and asks why this sudden rush to marry in the human world, so Rovel casually replies that he just wants Ijel to leave him alone for good. Once preparations are complete, the priest asks who the bride is. Rovel calls out to his wife, summoning her from the spirit world. A shimmering portal opens and Origin leaps through it, landing in her husband's embrace. Rovel apologizes for the humble setting, but Origin beams, saying she's simply happy to marry him again in the world of humans. As Ellen watches her parents reunite, she's filled with joy, but both the priest and Alberto are left speechless. Rovel calmly explains that his wife is a spirit, and in order to be with her, he became part spirit himself. Origin greets Alberto warmly, and he finally recognizes her as the one he once saw on the battlefield. With everyone gathered, the priest turns to the couple and asks if they are ready to exchange their vows. Both Rovel and Origin give a heartfelt yes, and after reciting their vows, they sign the marriage certificate, and Origin leans in to kiss her husband. Watching the moment unfold, Ellen asks them to hold out their hands. Though confused, they follow her request, and Ellen begins channeling the platinum element. From her magic, she shapes matching wedding bands and gently slips them onto their ring fingers. She explains that this finger is connected to the heart, symbolizing the bond between two people in love. To finish, she draws out carbon from the air and forms radiant diamonds, setting them into Origin's ring as the perfect final touch. With that, Ellen leaves her parents with a memory they'll never forget. With both parents clearly touched, Ellen caps off the celebration by casting a shimmering shower of diamond dust. The couple grows emotional at the gesture, and just then, radiant light streams through the church windows as the twin deities of this world, Vor and Var, appear to offer their blessings. Their divine approval seals the moment, and the priest formally declares the union complete. Ellen smiles to herself, proud that her overpowered elemental ability allowed her to pull off such a spectacle. Watching her command such magical grace, Alberto is left speechless because Rovel's daughter is far beyond what he expected. Before everyone heads out, Ellen hands the leftover diamonds to the priest as a thank you gift. She then rushes over to her parents, telling Rovel he looked really cool, which makes him puff up with pride. But his smug, goofy expression instantly kills the mood for Ellen, so she turns and locks eyes with Alberto, who's been watching quietly. He quickly recovers and offers his congratulations, and Rovel accepts with a grin before asking Origin to escort Ellen back to the spirit realm. Seeing her surprise, Rovel explains that keeping her around might anger Ijel. He tells Ellen that she can still watch his journey through a magic mirror, and Origin agrees. Muttering that she'd love to roast Ijel to ashes, Origin's tone surprises Ellen, who hadn't realized how much her parents detested that woman. Rovel says it plainly that Ijel is his rival, and on top of that, he's worried the royal family might try to arrange a political marriage involving Ellen someday. Alberto is visibly uncomfortable because Ellen's still just a kid, but Rovel insists he isn't taking any risks, especially given how cute she is. After finishing his explanation, Origin says her goodbyes and Rovel starts walking off with Alberto. But partway to the carriage, Rovel freezes and tries to turn back toward Origin. She firmly tells him to stop being a baby and just go handle what needs to be done. Finally, mustering his nerve, Rovel walks away for real, leaving Origin and Ellen to return to the spirit world, where they locate a mirror to keep an eye on his adventures. Inside the carriage, Alberto reflects on how sorry he feels for Rovel. He knows exactly how miserable Ijel made his life. She pressured him into marriage, treated him like garbage, and only grew worse over time. When the city came under attack by monsters, it gave Rovel the perfect excuse to break things off, claiming he might not survive. In retaliation, Ijel sent him to the front lines alongside his father. The battle claimed his father's life, and it was Origin who whisked Rovel away to the spirit realm. As the memory fades, Alberto finds himself surprised at how different Rovel has become. He quietly wonders if his time in the spirit realm helped him reclaim the joy he lost after the catastrophe with the monsters. With his hands clenched in regret, Alberto lowers his head and apologizes for not being able to manage Ijel. But Rovel, well aware how unreasonable she can be, doesn't hold it against him. Instead, he tells Alberto that he also bears the blame for leaving him to handle everything alone, so Rovel urges his old companion to stop carrying the weight of guilt. As their carriage rolls through the streets, banners bearing the Vankreift crest begin to appear across the town, signaling their hero's return. Passers-by spot the decorations and begin gathering, celebrating the arrival of Rovel. Watching the growing crowd, Rovel can't help but smile. Their carriage pulls up in front of the family estate, where a large crowd is already waiting beyond the open gates. When the carriage comes to a stop, Rovel and Alberto step down, and Rovel walks forward to address the gathering. With a soft smile, he greets the people, saying how glad he is to see them again, earning loud cheers as he turns and heads toward the mansion. At the main entrance, Rovel is met by the chief butler and the household maids, all lined up in anticipation. The entire staff bows in unison, and Rovel expresses his thanks for the warm reception. The butler gently gestures for him to come inside, and as they step in, a woman's voice echoes through the hall, excited by the news of his return. A moment later, a figure comes barreling down from the upper floor, and upon spotting Rovel in the foyer, she charges down the stairs, only to trip and fall, rolling the entire way like a collapsing bag of flour. The butler tactfully pretends not to notice his mistress's humiliating fall, while Rovel stands frozen, staring at her with wide eyes. He quietly wonders who the oversized creature might be, and the butler, with some reluctance, informs him that it's Lady Igel. Still delusional, the piggish Igel attempts to throw herself at Rovel in a hug, but he swiftly dodges, recoiling from her ghastly form. The butler flinches at Rovel's blunt reaction, but Igel pays no attention. She begins rambling that her father arranged her marriage to Sovel and that she had no say in the matter. Caught up in her fantasy, she insists that Rovel's return must mean he came back for her. Rovel's stone-faced cuts her off coldly, making it clear that he has no such intentions. Back in the spirit realm, Origin watches the scene unfold and her temper flares. Furious at the sight of this woman throwing herself and her husband, she sparks with rage. Helen quickly steps in and tells her mom not to reduce their castle to ashes. Calming down at her daughter's words, Origin grits her teeth and tells Ellen that this shameless woman is Igel. Ellen nods in understanding, realizing that they've finally laid eyes on her father's ultimate nemesis. This was the end of episode 1. Subscribe to not miss the next episode.
Take